Come on down to the Law Student Lounge with your host, attorney Ryan McKeen, where law students like you tell their stories. So pull up a chair and join us in the lounge.
Hello and welcome, everybody. We have a guest I'm so excited to talk about. Gretchen Nicolaysen. Gretchen is amazing. I have known Gretchen for a number of years before she went to law school. And this is an interesting story, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people who may not have gone to law school straight after graduation. They may have had careers. They may have worked in law firms. So I'm not going to give too much away, but Gretchen, could you introduce yourself and welcome?
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Gretchen. I am a 48-year-old law student. I went back to school. So I just finished my first year. I'm taking summer classes right now. So I'm getting ready to start my second year of law school. And my husband's an attorney. I worked, it's kind of a funny story. I started at the firm. So he started his own firm in 2017, in February 2017. I came into the firm in September of 2017. So pretty soon after the firm started. So we do personal injury. At the time, we did family law and estate planning also. But kind of as time progressed, just kind of realizing all the work that I put in the firm that didn't count because I didn't have a JD behind my name. And so I'm like, well, I think it's time to change that. And so I just kind of just realized like I can go to law school. I get that I'm old and that my brain doesn't work the way it used to, but I have the ability to go to law school. And so took the LSAT, applied, and went to law school, decided to start law school.
That is awesome and inspiring. And I know, at least when I was a law student, having people who had real life experience. And when I went to law school pretty much straight out of college, and having people who were, had careers and had done things, it was such a valuable classroom experience for me as somebody who was 22 to see people who had, and not only are you going to law school, not only are you married to a lawyer, your daughter just graduated law school. So the Nicolaysen family has gone from one to we're working on 3 lawyers in the span of 4 years, right?
Yeah. And so what's funny is, so our daughter Megan did just graduate from the University of Louisville Law School, and she is studying. She moved back to home because she's going to take the Colorado bar, which is literally a week from tomorrow. And so I have been able to watch her whole process of studying for the bar, and I am not going to lie, it freaks me out. It freaks me out. But I also know lots of really dumb attorneys. So I do like to remind myself, if some of these people can do it, certainly I can do it. It's going to be hard. It's going to take a whole lot of work, but I'm capable of, I can do the work just as well as anybody else can. So it freaked me out a little bit, but so I had to kind of take a couple steps back and remind myself, it's okay that you're older. It's okay that it's not going to be as easy for you as it is for some people, but I will work my ass off to take the bar and take it one time and be done and move on.
The advice that I got, which I always give when I was taking the bar, was, look, treat it like a full-time job and some homework, and you'll do fine. And I'm with you. I said to myself, and I think I meant it, which was, I am never taking the bar twice. I am one and done. If I do not pass, I will say I should do something else because I didn't like it that much. But good for Megan. And you're right. Yeah, a lot of people pass the bar. But I think I do think the advice of treat it like a job with some homework. Yeah. And, and again, are there always people who, for whatever reason, they have a bad day, they're not feeling well, the anxiety gets the best of them, for sure. But I think for the majority of people who I went to law school with and who didn't pass, it was they were hey, they start studying after the 4th of July or something. Yeah. And you're oh, wait, so you took June off to golf and you're
going to spend 3.5 weeks getting ready for the bar exam?
Yeah. That's not a good plan.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love it because I was actually, we have a Carla Ochoa in our office is a paralegal who's applying to law school. I was talking to her about you because you do like a very interesting program. And I'd like you to tell us about this. Like when I went to law school, like there was no sort of like hybrid option. Like it was all like you had to go in person. So can you tell us where you go and what the structure of your program is?
So I'm going to back up just a little bit. So in Colorado, there are 2 law schools. One is in Denver and one is in Boulder. Denver is closest to me in Colorado Springs, and it's an hour and 20-minute drive each way. And so that is the closest law school. So I honestly thought it was Denver or bust. I either get into Denver or I'm not going to law school because I'm not interested. I can't move my family to go to law school. Like that was my only option. And then I actually got an email from one of my favorite people in the world, Nancy KV. And she's like, wait a minute, like there's this other program that you should look into. She had actually gone to, so I go to Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, which is based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. So Nancy, at one point, there were 2 separate schools, Mitchell and Hamlin, and they merged to become Mitchell Hamlin. And so Nancy KV graduated from whichever of the ones she went to when she went to law school. And then her paralegal, Christy, had actually done this program. And so she connected me with Christy, and that's how I even learned about this program. And so I'm incredibly grateful that I learned about it because like driving to Denver every single day sounds exhausting. And so what it is they do a hybrid program where I am required to come and be in person. So depending on the semester, either 2 weeks or a week and a half. So the odd semesters, so 1, 3, and 5, and 7, 1, 3, and 5. I go the first week of class and basically the last week of class right before final start. So I come to Minnesota and you do a week long, it's intensive. I mean, it's like 60 hours of coursework in 1 week. And so those weeks they're a lot. I mean, I will not lie, it's a lot. And then everything in between is online, which is fantastic because I mean, I'm not a person that needs to be, like I'm a self-starter. I don't need to be babysat. Like I can sit down and make myself do the reading I don't want to do. I can make myself sit down and work on the paper I don't want to write. Like I am good at getting stuff done. And so this program works well for me. I could see how it wouldn't for some people just because they need the in-person, they need someone in your face telling you to get your stuff done, right? But yeah, everything is online. I was able to go to Hawaii with Chris in February. So my second semester of law school, I was able to take a week and go to Hawaii. Like what 1L gets to go to Hawaii in the spring semester of their first year of law school? Like I literally sat at the beach and did my reading, did my work. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I love it. I love it.
No, that is just awesome that even exists. And as we talk about having an inclusive profession, as we talk about having a healthy profession, like, these are the kinds of solutions that we need institutions like law schools to create and to innovate in these ways. Because I think there is like a lot of value of being in person. Like there's almost no substitute for it in like a lot of ways where you're interacting with your classmates. Like there's like some of my law school classmates are still some of my best friends, like 20, 25 years ago. But there's a huge cost to doing that as well. And so you have something like this that from an outside perspective, I think like, this sort of like takes like the best of all worlds or both worlds for the right student. So if you're a law student out there thinking of this, like, look at these programs because I mean, Minnesota to Colorado, like that's not necessarily close. Like that's got to be like almost a 2-hour flight.
Yeah, it is about a 2-hour flight. But like going back to your point though, you would be surprised how our group, so everyone in my section, like the way we've connected, because this not like you're not just floating out in oblivion in the middle on the online portions. We have weekly office hours where we're all meeting together with the professor for each class. We're doing discussion posts. We're chatting all the time about everything, like, so I really think everyone in my section, like we have all become like really good friends too. So we're not missing out on that because we're not in person all day, every day. Like that doesn't go away because we're not technically in person. I will also say, so this program also is technically, it's a part-time program because there's you can work as, most people that I go to school with work full-time. A lot of people work full-time, have little kids, and are doing law school. And how they do that is, I cannot even fathom. And so, but I'm going during the summer so that way I can still get my GD in 3 years to get it done a little faster. So yeah, so it's technically a 4-year program, and then, going in the summers will get me done in 3.
That is awesome. And if you're out there and you're thinking about going to law school, like really consider these options because, it for the right person, it's like this is going to be an excellent opportunity that, again, you're faced with a choice of, you're saying driving to Denver 3 hours each day, 4 days a week. That's 12 hours
in the winter,
of your life.
Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
12 hours of your life going back and forth to Denver, which is either going to take a tremendous toll on you physically, emotionally, psychologically, or you're just not going to do it. Look, there are people out there who live in, lot less, a lot more rural environments than Colorado Springs, even. Who this is like, wow, what a fantastic option. So if you're a law student out there, definitely look at what Mitchell Hamlin and what Gretchen are doing, and also, good on you, Mitchell Hamlin, for doing this, because I think it's a really a wonderful opportunity. And I also think, and I want to talk about this a little bit, a lot of my law school classmates basically went from college to law school, and maybe they took a year or two or whatever, but I would say the vast majority of my class was 25 years old ish. And so how has your life experience and your work experience informed law school for you?
So what's interesting about, I think because of the type of this program, we don't have very many of those types of students. I think if I remember right, the stats they sent us at the beginning of the year, I think the average age of the people in 1L is like 35. So, we have some 70-year-olds in our class. I have a practicing anesthesiologist in my class. I have a dentist in my class. Like, people who are like making these huge career shifts, later in quotes in life, I think that's what I love about this program, is it gives the ability for those types of people, me even, to go to law school when typically these people don't have the ability to be in an in-person full-time program, and it just where it sucks up your whole life. Like, this gives you the ability to have both, which is great. As far as my experience going into it from being a paralegal and helping Chris run the firm, it has not helped me as much as I wanted it to. It just hasn't. I will say what it has done, it's given me a lot of perspective that the 22-year-old law student doesn't have, where you're so worried about getting A's in every single class, and so worried about being number one in your class, and so worried about being on the dean's list. Like there's a lot of people in my class that they get so wrapped up in the competition of it, and they get so, get so stressed and anxious about every single little grade that comes out. And I'll tell you what, I had another attorney tell me before school started, like, C's gets degrees. It does not matter. As long as I get that JD behind my name and I can pass the bar exam, it doesn't matter if I got an A in contracts or a C in contracts. It doesn't matter. No one is ever going to ask me what I got in contracts. And so going in with that perspective, takes a whole lot of pressure off of performing in law school.
Few things to unpack here. And that is a great perspective. When I went, look, I was 22 years old and everything felt like life and death. Like my entire existence depended upon my criminal law midterm, right? Or I guess we had a criminal law final. And it was like, and everything felt so devastating if it didn't go my way, or so exhilarating if it did. Like, I lack perspective. And again, I don't know how you can have that perspective unless you've lived some. And the other thing that is sort of important, I was hoping you would say this, is that, if you're out there, you're thinking about going to law school, or you're in law school, don't think that if you you're working in a law firm or working with lawyers, it's going to be all that useful to you. So I don't feel like you have to have that experience. Look, it's going to help you when you practice, and it's always like, no experience is bad experience. But don't, if you're out there and you're thinking of applying, don't hold yourself back because you're like, I've never worked in law firms, I don't know what lawyers do. Or if you're going into it, I mean, we had, in our law school class, we had some paralegals who got humbled because they thought they knew what was going on. And, I can still remember the looks on some of their faces when their first year grades came back to them as they're walking back to their seats. Because it's sort of a different beast, is really in a lot of ways is. Now,
it really is.
Now, did you go into law school like with an idea of what kind of lawyer that you want to be when you get out of law school?
It's funny because that's a question I think all law students get all the time. Like, what kind of law are you going to do? It's funny. I've kind of been on the fence until about this, like literally this past week. I was in a family mediation class. So I had to narrow down to one of two things. I was either going to go back to Springs Law Group and do personal injury with Chris and Jake and the firm that I helped build, or I love the idea of becoming a guardian ad litem and really like making a difference in this world, and, just helping people that like don't have access, to legal representation. And because, Chris makes enough money, I also have that added bonus of not having the pressure of needing to make a certain amount of money after graduating. I could literally graduate and do whatever I want. So that's kind of what I had narrowed down to. And then this last week, I took a family mediation class and realized I could never be a guardian ad litem. I give so much credit to anyone who can work in the family law sphere, like that realm. But I realized I actually had my professors like, it just probably isn't a good idea for you. And for lots of reasons, and not that I'm not capable of doing it, but it's taxing. It is so hard. And I have a whole history that not a lot of people know about. And so I'm just like, that's enough. Like, I don't need to purposely put myself back in this traumatic world that, and so kind of, because I had this idea that it was my job to save the world. And it literally this week, it came to me during this class that I'm like, wait, no, that's not your job. Like, your job is not to save, it's to change the world for your children and for the people around you. You can't really go much bigger than that. Although ideally I would like to, but it's not realistic. And so stop trying and focus on what you can control. And so like, I love the personal injury world. I love it. Like, I get fired up about these stupid insurance companies that, Ryan, like these stupid insurance companies that do not treat people fairly. Like, I'm just as happy to fight for them as I am for, anybody else. So most likely I will return to the personal injury world.
Indeed, so much to unpack there. And like, anybody listening is just going to get so much out of this, because yes, like that is a very mature perspective, and one that I am actually struggling with like right now. Like, what are my obligations to others? Like, where does my ability to impact or influence end?
Yeah.
And how do I want to spend my time? Like, look, I'm 43, I think. Yeah, 43. And it's like, how, assuming like statistically I have like 40 years left, like, how do I want to spend my time? So much of my time has been spent for others, which is fantastic. But knowing yourself, and knowing, why, and having the depth to understand why you might be drawn to something you're trying to heal some trauma at like a base level, and why that might not be healthy for you, and why that is okay. Like, if you are out there and you are listening to that, like, think about why you might be drawn to an area of law, and and again, for some people, they may say, you know what, this is what I was put here to do, and awesome. But go through that analysis and have the confidence and almost the self-love is the word I'm going to use, like the phrase I'm going to use to say, like, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that I don't do this. And, you know, in that, I'm trying to think like how like 25-year-old me would have heard that, or 23-year-old me would have heard it. It probably would have glossed over, but you're going to be struggling with this in some way in your legal career. And go through that analysis that Gretchen just did, because that is powerful.
Well, and I think I also had the realization too that I can help in other ways. Like I can help financially. I can give a lot of money to these, you know, to CASA, who's helping kids in foster care. You know, there are ways to help without being in there, like doing the nitty gritty dirty work that I don't think I'm emotionally able to do. And so, like, you know, just, it's not an all or nothing, you know, that's what I love about it, is like, there's other ways to help and to make the world better without, you know, being in GAL.
That is, I mean, that's wonderful for anybody looking to go into any area of law. If you're sort of like ideally motivated, and by that I mean, like, you know, you want to fight on behalf of criminal defense, you know, criminal defendants, or you want to do civil rights law or environmental law or any of these things, guardian ad litem law, like, it's okay. Like, it is okay for yourself. And I also think, you know, and you know, lawyers can have many different careers within their career, and often almost all of them do. So if something's not serving you, like, it's okay to change it.
Because life is too short. You know, it really is. Life is too short to spend your day being miserable in any field, in any, you know, any practice area, in any marriage, in anything, you know, like if you're not enjoying what you're doing, like, change it, you know, you have to change it.
So if you could go back and, you know, talk to yourself a year ago about law school, what would you tell yourself?
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you what, Ryan. What I would tell myself is that, because literally, and I'd like to think that most law students do this. I've been reassured it's not abnormal that I had a complete meltdown before school started, because I started doing my reading for torts, and I'm just like, I mean, and I'm coming from personal injury. Like, I get personal injury, but I'm like reading the casebook for torts, and I'm just looking at this, and I'm just breaking down, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading. I cannot do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. I'm not, like, all of these reasons why I'm like, I'm not going. Like, I can't do this. And so even being a 47-year-old going into law school, like, there's so much uncertainty, because you don't really, everybody tells you how horrible it is, but they don't really explain, like, how, you know, it's terrible. It's so much reading. It's all this, it's all that. And so I just was panicking. I'm just like, I can't do this. So I guess I wish and now that I'm on the other side of my first year of law school, it is hard. It's very hard, but it's also doable. Like, it's not impossible. It just requires some focus and a little bit of effort, you know, like, it doesn't require some massive brain. It doesn't require some massive level of intelligence to, I mean, you have to have a certain level of intelligence to get into law school, take the LSAT and all that. But, like, you don't have to be some super genius to perform well in law school. You just don't. And so I wish I could go back and just kind of reassure myself and be like, okay, I get, this is very scary. This is a brand new experience. I mean, I saw my husband go through it. I saw my daughter go through it, but from a distance, like, I was not in the classroom with them. I wasn't looking at their textbooks. I wasn't, you know. So once I finally was in that spot where I'm just like, oh crap, like, what have I actually gotten myself into? I wish I could just go back and just be like, you know what? It's okay to be scared. I've learned at this point in my life, the scarier it is, the more I need to head that direction. The more I need to just dive right into it, because, you know, not doing something because you're scared is unacceptable in my book.
You know, and that's so much in fact there too. I think that, you know, like, right, I remember I had personal trainers, and they're like, oh, if it hurts, you need to do more of it. Like that's your body telling you like you need to work your back more. And with law school, the thing is for if you haven't been, it's unlike anything that you have probably ever done in your life.
Yeah.
It is a learning environment that is very, very different. So if you're used to reading, a history book that talks about, Louis the 14th, and it's sort of written out in a certain way, and then you get questions about Louis the 14th, law school is very, very different. And with the, case, reading cases and sort of learning law through study of case law and holdings and all sorts of things. So you're not going to have most people, I can't imagine, come out having had any sort of similar background. Like you would never sort of learn about molecular biology or something the same way lawyers learn about law. Like they would never teach it that way. Which is part of what law school is, which is teaching you how to think about the law, which is annoying and exhausting, and you're building up some muscle. So, if you're out there, that is, if you're not having that experience, I worry about you. I do, because I was telling my wife Allison about talking to some lust. I was doing another episode of this, and I was talking, and I said, I was like, there were 3 people in our first year class who were convinced that they knew everything. And that they above all knew everything. And I remember because they handed out our criminal law was our first final, and we got the grades in early January. It was our only final. And for whatever reason, you walk to the front of the class and you pick them up. And so and I will never forget their names or their faces because they had eaten humble pie. Absolutely had a huge dose of it. And so if you're out there and you're struggling with it, you should be struggling. And if you're challenged by it, you should be challenged. And don't look to your left or right and think that, wow, Joe over here, he knows everything. He gets it. Joe may act that way. Just do your own thing, because that can be a thing in law school where people can get in their own head. And I think that, listen to what Gretchen said, because if you're going to do law school, you're almost certainly going to feel it if you're doing it right. And if you're not, I am really kind of concerned about you. You don't want to be, I'm not going to name names, but you don't want to be these, you don't want to be the 2 or 3 guys who, they have their smart kid study group and,
And what's interesting, even having the perspective that I mentioned earlier, like C's get degrees, right? I know that whether I get an A or whether I get a C in contracts does not matter. Except to me, I still care about the grades I get. I still care about, so there are times where I'm still kind of drugged down into that world where I'm just I'm not working hard enough. I'm not as smart as everybody else. I'm not, I still have moments of that for sure. Because I think law school is built to be that. And so I really have to, usually it's Chris that'll be okay, hold on. This doesn't matter. Why are you getting so wrapped up into this? And so it is good to have, outside support of people that kind of have that mindset to be look, this really doesn't matter. You just have to pass. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter. So it's good to have those reminders from outside source, because it is very easy to get just sucked into it, because that's what your fellow students are doing, and that's what the school, the program itself is kind of designed to do.
Now, to change gears here a little bit, you're unique in the sense that you and your daughter overlap in law school.
Right.
Now does this do you talk about it? Do you talk about offer acceptance consideration? Is that what goes on at the Nicolaysen family Thanksgiving table?
Okay, so first of all, I tried. There's so many things, because she was a 3L when I was a 1L. And I tell you what, there's so many things I asked, I would ask her questions, because Chris went to law school in 2010. So it's long gone for him, where she's still fresh in it, right? So I would ask her questions. She's like, Mom, I have no idea. She's like, I don't remember any of that. And I'm like, you are no help to me. Zero. None, zero. She was no help to me at all. And so, and it's funny, every time I try to like have like conversations about a case I read that I thought was interesting, or a rule I read that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is a rule, whatever. And like both Chris and Megan, they kind of just roll their eyes at me and they're just like, we know you're in law school. We get it. Like, so you would think that my family would like engage in these conversations, but they really just don't. And it makes me a little sad. I'm not going to lie.
And there's lessons in all of that. And in that, a lot of law too is like the ability, like I have a lot of criticisms of the bar exam and law school in general, and that I think it doesn't actually teach things that are actually relevant to being lawyers in like a lot of ways, or test things. But I'm going to check that thought for a minute. And, but specifically, the thing that it actually does do is like, as a lawyer, and almost invariably, like any area of law, like we do litigation, and that's basically my background, though I've done real estate closings and transactions or whatever. You spend a lot of time memorizing things, essentially. And then you use that knowledge and memorization in whether it's an oral argument or a trial or a brief, and then you kind of dump it out of your mind. Because your brain cannot handle all of these things. It just can't. And so you become an expert, and then you dump, and then you're like, and then like 5 years later, you're like, oh, you know what? I think I had this in the Jones case. And then you like go back and you like look at what work you did then, and you're like, oh yeah, this I did know the answer. So I think a lot of law school. So if you're out there, like it is really like the exams where at least we had like 4 or 5 hour essays at the end of a year that basically tested our whole year of knowledge. You then forget that information, and then you have to like relearn it for the bar exam, which is just like more of the same thing. And then you take the bar, and then you're going to dump all that knowledge. So like that is a muscle, like that is part of the process of law school. That is part of being a lawyer. And it is sort of a natural consequence of like, I really actually think that our brains are not wired to handle all of the information that any one of us consumes in 2023. Like I was reading something that everybody reads like the equivalent of Moby Dick online pretty much every day. Like,
wow,
that is how much content comes at one.
Yeah,
maybe that includes like video, but it's like it's an immense amount of content that probably like evolutionarily, like nothing prepares us for that.
Right.
So if you're out there and you're dealing with this, and you're trying to talk to a lawyer about some case, like I think most my lawyer friends, like they'll remember like there's a criminal case where 2 guys are on a boat and one guy eats another guy. Like that stuff is like really, really memorable.
Yes.
But like when you're like, you're like U.S. shoe, you're like, what?
Yeah.
What jurisdiction? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's true.
Now, one of the things that is completely changed since I went to law school is constitutional law. Like, so all the cases like I read about, Casey and Roe and all of these things, like these giant, like a number of rights, like all this law gets like changed suddenly. Like how have those subjects, how have you found that they have been taught or are being taught at Mitchell Hamlin?
So I think what's interesting, so I actually, because of the nature of the program, so I'm actually taking con law this fall. And so I'm dreading it, and I've heard this semester is going to be rough because there's just it's a lot, it's heavy. But I think what's interesting about even just the way the program is designed, so we don't have like a typical in-person law school where we've got, you go to class all semester and you have one test at the end. I mean, in contracts last semester, I wrote 4 papers, had a quiz every single week. There's a lot of deliverables that I have to do that even. So when Megan came home and I was showing her kind of all the work I had to do, she's like, that is so much. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of deliverables that she never had to do. So what I think is interesting about that is that I think I know way more about contracts because I wrote those 4 papers than the average in-person student who's relying on themselves to just study and memorize throughout the semester and then take write one giant essay at the end of the semester. And so I think that definitely is way different than the typical in-person law student experience. Is I do a lot more work. I have a lot more grades than just one paper at the end.
Interesting. That I think it's a healthier model. And I think that the model that Megan experienced and I experienced is far more common, where it's just like everything rides on something at the end.
I mean, granted, our finals tend to be a very large majority, of the weight of the grade, like 50 to 60%, where, we take these quizzes and they're worth, 2% of our grade. So there's not so much pressure on those. The pressure is still on the final, but there's all this work in between that gets us to the final that, they say helps us remember it better. I think it makes
a lot of sense. How do you do with this? Like, I know for a lot of people at law school, like a clinical experience or externships are an important part of law school. How does that work in the context of how it is you're going through law school?
So I can do an externship just like anybody else. I can get credit for it. I just, basically go talk to the lady at the school that's in charge of externships, and I can go work at the firm. I can work anywhere in Colorado. I don't have to do it in Minnesota. I can do it any firm in Colorado that's willing to take on an extern and, is willing to just fill out the paperwork for the school saying that I did the work. So pretty simple.
That's awesome. And just for anybody out there thinking about this, it's like, it really does sound like you're not losing anything by doing this. And in fact, you're gaining a lot. And I think it'll be interesting. Like, I really think you're going to see more and more law schools go to this model. I think it just makes...
Yeah, there are several other schools that do. So I learned from classmates. There's, I guess, a school in Ohio does. I mean, I could not tell you what the names of these programs are. There's like 5 or 6 different schools in the country that are taking on this model. I think Mitchell Hamlin was the first one to do it, but other schools, especially since, are catching on and realizing that we can get way more people access to law school through programs like this.
It's so important to me. I think it's so important because it is actual inclusion. Like, you are talking about, people who may not, look, a lot of people who go to law school, like, they come from money. Like, that is who they are. They may not have student debt or law student debt. Their parents basically support them through the process. And when you have people, particularly whether it's first generation people or adults who are returning or moms or persons of color, like, you have, this is something that if we talk about, a diversity on the bench and diversity in corporate law or in law firms, like, these are the things that really, really matter, as opposed to, forcing somebody into, essentially law school not being able to fit within their life.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to add that it is an ABA accredited school. So I'm not going to a non-accredited school. And, and we follow all the rules of the ABA. So, like, we have to have so many in-person hours. And that's what gets shoved into those weeks that we're here in Minnesota. And so, and it is great because even going back to the stats that they sent us at the beginning of the year, like, we have an incarcerated student in our program. And I'm just like, wow, like, that's amazing that, someone's going to be able to, get their law degree while sitting in jail. Like, they're going to come out and probably be more, I don't know how they're going to get licensed, but, but just the idea that they're going to be able to get out of jail and be able to, most likely be more productive than they would be otherwise. So yeah, talk about diversity. And how, like,
well, and traditionally it's like, we got that at our schools, like, through the night programs. Like, we had a priest who went back, we had an obstetrician who went back, a cardiac surgeon. Like, it was all these, and we also had all these adults who went back because like Mass Mutual, who is a local insurance company, like, they would pay for people. So, like, we had business people who would come in. Now, how does the remoteness of all of it, do you have a faculty that is sort of like geographically diverse? And so sort of like what I mean by that is like, at least, I mean, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. UConn School of Law is, not far from where I am right now. And a lot of the faculty like have to live here. Are your faculty spread throughout the country? Do they tend to live in the Minneapolis area?
Yeah, they all pretty much live in Minneapolis, which is, I mean, I don't know that it would impact us differently if they lived in Ohio or lived in California or, because really our interaction, because they're here, we're here with them in person when we're during our in-person time. But then, like I said, during the online chunk of time in between, like we have office hours where the professor shows up, and they're not like office hours like I think an average student would think of, where they're just sitting in their office just waiting for people to show up and ask questions. Like literally almost everyone comes to office hours. Like it's one giant class time almost, where they're there to answer questions. They're there to give instruction if needed. They're there to, explain. So we meet with them once a week. They're in Minnesota and we're all over the world. We actually have a student that lives in Africa that is in our she's like literally up at 4:30 in the morning for all of the office hours to participate. And so like, yeah, the student body is just spread out all over the place. Yeah. But basically to answer your question, like as far as I know, all the professors I've had so far are based in Minneapolis, are based in St. Paul.
Yeah. I just wonder over time if it will change, if it really wouldn't allow law schools to attract, different people to the faculty, like overall, if they don't have to like live in a place.
Well, and I think too, because most of our professors are teaching like that, because Mitchell Hamlin also has a brick and mortar program, a typical program. And so they're kind of switching back and forth between both. They're teaching in-person classes and they're teaching hybrid classes.
Yeah. It's been amazing to talk to you. There is so much here for anybody who is thinking about going to law school, in law school, an adult who's looking to return to law school. I think this is like so valuable. It's going to help some people out there.
Yeah.
I always end this one on a sort of like a not serious note, because try not to take ourselves too seriously. We're at a cookout. You get a burger, it could be a veggie burger, hamburger. What are you putting on the burger in terms of condiments?
I am pretty basic. I want mustard and mayonnaise. Ketchup is overrated. So I want mustard and mayonnaise and a slice of cheese and maybe some lettuce. That's it. Like I'm simple.
I cannot. I don't think I have ever had mustard or mayonnaise. I don't think so. So I think I have to try that. Ketchup and mayonnaise to me is like a thing, but I don't know. I don't know about mustard and mayonnaise. So I have not had that. So you are like the first person I've heard say that, and I wonder if that's like a Mountain West thing. Like I don't know that I've even seen that out here.
I don't know. I think my whole life, like, I mean, I was born and raised in Ohio, so like,
well,
in my bologna sandwiches as a child, I had mustard and mayonnaise on my bologna sandwiches. So my whole life, I've just loved mustard and mayonnaise together. So yeah.
Well, Gretchen, I will have to give that a try. And so thank you so much. And I wish you all the best as you finish up your summer courses here, and look forward to having you back on when you graduate law school. And best to you and your family, and good luck to your daughter who will be taking the bar.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Ryan McKeen in the Law Student Lounge, where real law students talk about their real lives. Are you a law student with a story to tell? Learn how you can share your story with us in the episode description. And join us next time in the Law Student Lounge.